Iceberg lists have been all the rage the past few years, a seemingly endless rabbit hole that becomes more mysterious and obscure the deeper you dive. But among many of the most detailed iceberg lists lies topics that even the people that put them there don't really even know about. One particular topic, found at the deepest level of these lists that seems to get close to zero coverage, is the subject of meat spit. Sorry, wrong list. Meat stations. The origin of this topic is so shrouded in mystery that it's not even entirely known what exactly the entry is even referring to. But the most agreed upon idea is that it refers to an underground network of markets that operate in the buying and selling of human meat. I decided to dig into this, and naturally, this search brought me to the deep web, where I ended up discovering what claims to be a legitimate human meat market. Browsing that site was a unique experience to say the least, and I even made contact with the person running it. We'll get into that shortly, so stick around as we dive into the meat and potatoes of meat stations. Now, I'm gonna assume that most of you don't find human flesh appetizing, so if you're hungry for an alternative that actually tastes good, consider today's sponsor, Factor. Factor makes meal planning easy. Forget grocery shopping, cooking, prepping, and cleaning, when instead you can get chef-crafted, fresh, never-frozen meals from Factor. With over 35 dietitian-approved meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, and more, it's hard to pass this up. Not only does it all taste great, but it could save you money. If you're someone that orders takeout a lot, then Factor is going to be much cheaper. You'll get restaurant-quality meals delivered right to your door, and the best part is, they're ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. Honestly, I'm guilty of ordering delivery more than I should, and it shows when I look at how much I spent on it. I found Factor to be a cheaper option, and honestly, I think it tastes better too. Plus, it's a massive time saver, so whether I'm researching or editing videos, I don't need to worry about the whole process of prepping, cooking, and cleaning. I've been using Factor for a long time now, and every time I order it, I get something unique that I always end up loving. Just 2 minutes in the microwave, and a meal better than every restaurant around me is an option I would take any day. If you want to take advantage of this, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code ScareTheater50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code ScareTheater50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. Now, let's jump back into the video. When most of us think about cannibalism, we think about some of the most horrific acts of cannibalism done by individuals for their own sick pleasure, such as the atrocities committed by people like Albert Fish and the notorious Milwaukee cannibal Jeffrey Dahmer. But of course, cannibalism is something that has been in practice for all of human history. Starting from thousands of years ago, all the way up until the mid-20th century, we've seen cannibalism as a culturally acceptable practice by indigenous tribes in the Amazon. For them, it was very common during funeral rituals because they believed it would help guide the deceased into the afterlife. This practice also extended into New Guinea, which eventually led to an incredibly deadly kuru outbreak. This is why there's this big misconception that eating human meat is way more dangerous than any other animal meat, which actually isn't true. You'd only get kuru from eating human meat if the person you ate had a prion disease, which like 99% of us don't. You still shouldn't eat people, but you know, I'm just saying. We also have Fiji, which was once literally known as Cannibal Isles, because up until the mid-1800s, the indigenous people here would regularly practice cannibalism during times of warfare. The warriors there believed that eating their enemies would allow them to absorb their strength and power. Also, it was intimidating as fuck. This exact same behavior was seen in the Congo, parts of the Solomon Islands, and also in the Maori people of New Zealand. And it wasn't always just some opportunistic thing either. Human flesh markets actually were an established thing in the past. In some parts of Melanesia, there are historical reports of human flesh being treated as a commodity and traded in local markets. Even those cultures I mentioned before that ate human flesh during battle had meat markets for warriors to recharge their spiritual power or whatever. There was even something of a human meat market that was popular in early modern Europe up until the 18th century for medicinal purposes. They would source body parts from executed criminals and mummies imported from Egypt because they believed their souls remained potent, therefore could heal better. People were prescribed mummy powder or dried human flesh to treat headaches and stomach problems, blood to remedy epilepsy, and skull moss to treat nosebleeds. It was weird times. Although cannibalism is frowned upon today in most parts of the world, there are still some isolated cases of it occurring in remote cultures. But even here in the developed world, some people believe that the human meat market is still alive and well to this day, but kept in complete secrecy. What's strange is that there's really almost nothing online that deeply goes into it. The few resources you'll find online discussing this will speculate upon many different ideas on why these markets exist and how they work. An article on Vertigo22.com links to many different 4chan posts vaguely discussing meat stations. The earliest of which included a post about an iceberg list, which included this entry near the bottom, mysteriously titled, "Meat Stations and Meat Tradings. Do not research." You know, you can't just tell someone not to research something and expect them to want to do anything other than research that thing. Under that same thread, someone inquired about it, and someone responded essentially saying it was just something about the trading and consumption of human meat, but didn't say much other than that. Throughout the rest of 2018 and into 2019, more threads popped up mentioning meat stations, most of which were just asking what the hell they were. Never in any of these threads did anyone ever give a clear explanation of what they were, which kept the whole concept shrouded in mystery. There were a lot of jokes posted about it though. I found this one particularly funny. The lack of knowledge surrounding this topic didn't stop people from speculating on theories though. The main thought process was that the majority of people have no interest in purchasing human meat, so if this large network of meat stations actually exists, it must be for a very niche demographic. The first thought that came to mind for many was that these meat stations were set up for very wealthy elites to purchase, almost like an exclusive gourmet market for exotic meats. Others thought these might be set up by the government as a form of population control, although this seems like a stretch. It would be a big and risky effort to kidnap and kill people on a mass scale just for population control. If we're gonna go down that route, some sort of bioweapon seems more plausible than this. On the extreme end of these theories were people who thought that these meat stations might be catering toward aliens, either for food or research purposes. As everyone discussed their theories amongst themselves, people conjured vivid imagery including scenarios of human beings kept on farms treated like animals after being sold into human trafficking. Another one of the few websites that discussed meat stations is wonderaggressive.com, where an article was posted suggesting that some evidence toward meat stations has actually been put forward. They cite discrepancies in global meat production statistics, irregularities in the meat supply chain, and reports of unidentified meats appearing in certain markets. But the most interesting thing they cited were anecdotes from alleged whistleblowers talking about the existence of meat stations. The only example I could find of such an anecdote originated from a bizarre video that I initially found on one of those old 4chan archives from 2018. I'm not sure if YouTube will let me show this video, but it's an eerie 40-second long clip depicting someone recording a freezer full of corpses on hooks. Each corpse has a slit on the right side of their body right underneath their neck. I tried taking screenshots of the clip and doing a reverse lookup to see if it was a scene from a movie or something, but I couldn't find anything. What I was able to find, however, was a bunch of Russian websites that linked to this video, all reporting a pretty similar story. They allege that the video came from a group of Russian hackers who published recordings from surveillance cameras of an illegal biofactory in the United States. They claim that what we are seeing in this factory are live skin suits taken from actual human beings that are used by presidents, billionaires, and politicians. If you're skeptical, you should be. Not only because this sounds absurd, but also because this clip we're seeing is clearly not surveillance footage. This video was recorded by someone actually walking around the room. This wasn't the only story I found about the video. I was also able to find a short 50-second clip of someone sharing their thoughts on the video. I can't play it because he's absurdly playing Requiem for a Dream incredibly loudly in the background and I'm going to get copyright strikes, but according to him, all that is known about this video is that it's a secret recording that was leaked and uploaded to the dark web. His angle was more around this being about some sort of cloning project that was creating skin suits for wealthy people, or even reptilian people. Yes, I know, totally reasonable, right? One thing that is odd about this clip though is that we're still not really sure where it came from. I've seen some people propose the idea that it's just a video of a cadaver room for like a morgue or a research facility or something. I really don't think that's the case because I seriously doubt that in cadaver rooms they hang people up on hooks like this. This was a really unsettling sight, guys. The hooks were literally going through one ear and out the other. In my opinion, the video looks really fake. The skin suits we're seeing look a lot like movie props, and it doesn't help that the video has like 10 pixels in it. If I had to make a guess on what this was, I'd say maybe it was someone working on a film set for some kind of horror movie, and he just took this behind the scenes video to post online and freak people out. Now I know I can just sit here and call everything fake, but there have been some legitimate, unsettling examples of cannibalism that was organized through things like online forums. One well-known example of this was on a website from the early 2000s called Cannibal Cafe. It was hosted on a parent site called necrobabes.org, and was essentially a fetish website for people to indulge in vorophilia, i.e. cannibal-related fantasies. It had all sorts of forum posts and chats of people talking about, eating each other and being eaten and stuff. They even had livestock applications for people to sign up to be one of the people being eaten in the fantasy. It's weird, but I'm not kink shaming. Things got dark when eventually a man named Myuu signed up to the forum under the name Frankie. Like many others, he made posts about looking for someone to cannibalize, except for him, this wasn't a fantasy. He wanted to do it for real. After some searching, he actually found a willing participant named Burned Brands who actually took Muse up on his offer. Seriously, he fully understood this was not a fantasy and he was still cool with it. After meeting up, Armin ate him and even saved the leftovers from his corpse in the freezer. After that incident, Cannibal Cafe was removed from Necrobabes and eventually the site just died out. If you want a deeper look into that incident, I actually made a full video on that about 6 years ago that you can check out. Now, Cannibal Cafe may no longer exist, but there's no shortage of cannibal websites out there, and that's where we get into my latest discovery. While researching this, I figured the best way to learn more about meat stations was to see if I could actually find one. So naturally, I took to the deep web, and after some searching, was able to find exactly 2 links that mentioned the sale of human meat. One was a listing from a user who simply posted his Telegram username under the caption, "Fresh human meat for sale." I did not message him, but I did find what appears to be a full website that belongs to him, mainly because the site has a lot of stuff that are direct quotes from his Telegram ad. The website is simply called Carne, Human Meat. I'll say, as far as cannibalism goes, this website seems to be doing it as ethically as it gets. They claim they source their meat mainly from morgues, and they get it verified by professionals for quality purposes. They even pat themselves on the back for their morality. They write, "As passionate people, we think everyone should taste human once in his or her life. Because it's yourself. It's knowledge. We deeply think eating human is not immoral as long as we don't kill them." And who can argue with that? They have a catalog of their products which includes different selections of meat, organs, or a mix, along with an order form to submit your order. I sent them an email from an anonymous account just to ask them some questions about the difference between the selection of choices and how they actually source the meats in depth. They responded in less than a day with this. Difference between basic, tasty, and deluxe selection is mainly the quantity of the meat you receive, which one you can easily calculate by looking at our selections. As for our meat recovery process, we prefer, as you'll understand, not to go into too much detail. As we inform our consumers on our website, we source our meat from various mortuaries and mortuary organizations with the direct or indirect help of health professionals in order to cut it as quickly and gently as possible. Our products are then stored in strict compliance with the cold chain. At this point, it has become meat like any meat. I gotta say, the mention of following cold chain compliance regulations under this context is hilarious. Anyway, I put my order in, and I actually mixed it in with my factor order, and I'm kidding, I obviously didn't order anything. I'm like 99% sure the website isn't actually selling human meat. It's either a joke made to troll people, or at most, a scam that sells cannibals pork or something like that. I feel like if such a service truly exists, I wouldn't have been able to find it this easily. Maybe one day, huh? All in all, I'm sure that probably somewhere out there does exist some sort of black market that sells human meat for consumption. We already know for a fact that a black market for organs exists, so it really isn't a far cry to assume that there's some sort of cannibal market out there too. But to go as far as to suggest there's some sort of massive centralized network of markets operated by the government that does this is a pretty wild claim that there's little to no evidence for. Thank you for watching, and I will eat you on the flip side.